I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, spilling the truth about my marriage in a forum like this. But honestly, I'm at a breaking point. It all started about 6 months ago, just after I proposed. Everything felt perfect, exciting, new, full of promise. My wife Lisa seemed like the one. She was smart, beautiful in a way that made my stomach tighten when I looked at her. We had the wedding planned, friends buzzing about, and I was finally about to start a new chapter of my life. Then little cracks started showing. I noticed her phone buzzing more often. She'd slip away to the bathroom or into her office when she got a message, quickly silencing her screen like it was a reflex. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe it was work stuff. She's a lawyer after all. Busy days, late nights. I'd catch her glancing nervously at her phone sometimes, her eyes flickering with guilt. But I told myself I was paranoid. Love makes you suspicious sometimes, right? The red flags grew more obvious as time went on, but I still clung to the hope that I was overthinking it. Until that night, I was at work late finishing up some files when my phone buzzed with a text from her boss, Tom. Just a few words: meeting you tonight, big night. I froze, feeling a cold sweat break out. My stomach sank. I stared at the screen, hands trembling. I couldn't believe what I read, but there it was, evidence that Lisa had been lying about her relationship with Tom. That moment hit like a punch in the gut. I felt my whole world tilt. I could hear the faint hum of the computer and the distant street noise outside, but everything else blurred into white noise. My hands clenched the desk so tightly my knuckles hurt. I wanted to scream, to shout at her for the lies, but mostly I was just dizzy with shock. I knew I needed to see her, confront her face to face. Something was deeply wrong, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I waited until she got home. When she finally stepped through the door, I was already waiting in the living room. Her eyes widened when she saw my face. It was a mixture of rage and hurt. She stammered, trying to explain, but I cut her off. "You slept with him, didn't you?" Her face went pale under the soft glow of the lamp. She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It was a mistake, I swear." "Don't lie," I snapped, my voice trembling with anger. "How many times, how long has this been going on?" Her silence was deafening. I could feel my fists trembling, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. I wanted to punch something, anything. Instead, I just sat down hard on the couch, overwhelmed. The room suddenly shrank around me. The scent of her perfume mixed with the stale air, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, the images flashing through my mind. The sneaking around, the lies, her face when she told me she loved me, all of it a giant lie. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. But I knew this wasn't just about her sleeping with Tom. It was about the manipulation, the lies that had been woven into our lives. I started to see the pattern, little things I'd ignored, warning signs I'd brushed off. I couldn't let her get away with it. That's when the idea started forming. I needed a plan, something cold, calculated, and final. I couldn't just walk away. I had to make her understand that I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I needed to hit her where it mattered, to make her feel the weight of what she'd done. That's when I started mapping out my revenge piece by piece. But I kept a secret, something I knew she'd never expect. The next morning, I woke up with a purpose. I wouldn't let her spin this around on me. She thought she'd manipulated me into submission, but she was wrong. I had something brewing, I just had to be careful. If she'd lied about this, what else could she be hiding? I'd dig, I'd find out everything. And when I did, she'd see what real betrayal looked like. I looked at her as she slept, her chest rising and falling, and I wondered what kind of person she really was. Was this just a moment of weakness, or had her deception run deeper? I was about to find out. The game was on. The more I thought about it, the clearer everything became. Lisa hadn't just cheated on me once. I realized her lies had been building a wall around her for months. Every time she dismissed my concerns or told me I was overreacting, she was hiding something. I started paying closer attention. Her phone, her schedule, her stories. Every detail was a thread I could pull on, and I was determined to unravel the entire fabric of her deception. I needed proof. Not just the text from Tom. I needed something more concrete, something that would blow her lies apart. So I set up a few discreet traps. I installed a keylogger on her laptop. Yeah, I know, it's extreme, but I was too angry and hurt to care about invasion of privacy at that point. I also hid a small camera in the living room, aimed at her side of the bed. I wanted to catch her in her own words, and I needed to be prepared for whatever I found. Over the next few days, I kept my cool. I didn't confront her yet. Instead, I watched her carefully, noticing her subtle shifts in behavior, nervous glances, fidgeting more than usual, her hand trembling when she thought I wasn't looking. Little things, but enough for me to know I was onto something. One evening, I finally got what I was after. I sat in the dark watching footage from the hidden camera. It was enough to make my stomach turn. I saw her sneaking out of the bathroom late at night, tiptoeing past the bedroom door. Then I heard her voice through the laptop. She was talking to Tom, agreeing to meet him again. Her voice was low, intimate, the kind of tone that made my blood boil. I heard her say, "I'll see you tonight, don't worry. I've got everything under control." That was it, the final piece. I had proof she'd been lying to me for months, and now I knew she'd been lying about more than just her affair. She'd been manipulating me, playing a game I didn't even realize I was part of. That's when the rage took over. I knew exactly what I had to do next. I spent the next day planning my revenge. I wanted her to feel the shock, the humiliation, the loss I felt. Reactions that could make her understand what she'd thrown away. The trust, the love, the respect. She needed to see that I was willing to go all the way to make her regret every lie. I decided I'd reveal everything at once, and I'd do it on my terms. No more hiding, no more pretending. It was time for her to face her actions. That night I prepared my little speech. I knew I'd confront her with everything, proof of her betrayal, her manipulation, her lies. I was going to make her understand that I wasn't just walking away quietly. I'd make her see the damage she'd done to us both. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt, the betrayal, the heartbreak, the fury, and I had a plan to make sure she never forgot it. When she got home that evening, I was waiting in the living room, the evidence spread out on the table like a trap. Her face drained of color when she saw what I'd gathered. I saw her eyes flicker with panic. She tried to speak, to justify herself, but I cut her off. "You lied to me," I said coldly. "Not just about Tom, about everything. How long has this been going on? How deep does the manipulation go?" Her voice trembled as she stammered, "It was just a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear." "Save it," I cut her off sharply. "You've been lying for months, I've seen the proof. You think you're clever hiding things behind your innocent face, but I'm done being your pawn. You played me, used me, and I'm sick of it." She tried to speak again, but I was already making my move. I handed her a folder, a collection of everything I'd gathered. The texts, the audio, the footage. Her expression twisted into one of shock and shame. I watched her falter as the truth sank in. "You're not the woman I thought I married," I said quietly, voice thick with rage. "And I don't want to be with someone who manipulates and lies. Consider this your final warning." With that, I handed her the keys to her car and the divorce papers I had prepared. I told her to leave. I didn't want her near me anymore. As she packed her things, I could feel my fists clenched so tightly my nails bit into my palms. I didn't see her as the woman I loved anymore. I saw someone else, someone rotten inside, someone unworthy of my trust. That night I slept with a hollow emptiness in my chest, knowing I had finally taken control of a situation spiraling out of control. I felt a strange mix of relief and disgust. The revenge wasn't about revenge at all. It was about reclaiming my dignity, about making her understand that I was no longer willing to be played. In the quiet darkness, I realized that I had taken the first step toward healing. But I also knew better than to think this was the end. The fallout would come, and I had no idea how deep this rabbit hole went. Still, I was ready to face it, because I'd finally opened my eyes to the truth. And once you see the truth, there's no unseeing it. The fallout hit faster than I expected. I thought once I handed over the divorce papers and the evidence, she'd disappear into the night, humiliated and defeated. But Lisa wasn't the type to go quietly. No, she's the kind of person who fights back, even if it's just to save a little face. And that's exactly what she did. The morning after, I woke to a flood of messages. At first, I ignored them, but her name kept flashing on my screen like a relentless blinking light. I hesitated, then finally picked up because honestly I was curious to hear what she'd say. Her voice was shaky, desperate almost. "You're ruining everything," she whispered. "You're overreacting, it's not what you think, please let's just talk." I think you've already said enough, I shot back, too cold to hide my disgust. I saw everything, Lisa. Sorry if the truth hurts, but you can't keep lying to me. Not anymore. There was silence on the other end, then a faint sob. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was weak, I guess. I didn't want to lose everything. I clenched my fists, feeling the rage bubble up again. Weak. You're manipulative. You lied to me for months. I trusted you more than I've ever trusted anyone. Maybe I was stupid, but I'm not anymore. You're a liar, Lisa, and I don't want to see your face again. That was the moment I shut down her attempts at justifying herself. I blocked her number, deleted her from social media, and focused on rebuilding my life, at least. Trying to, but Lisa wasn't done. She pushed back hard, sending a flood of texts, emails, even showing up unannounced. She played the victim, crying and pleading, trying to make me feel guilty for exposing her. But I wasn't buying it. What I felt was a strange, cold satisfaction mixed with the gnawing of betrayal. I'd always believed in honesty, in loyalty. And now I saw her for who she really was, manipulative, selfish, and willing to throw everything away just for a moment of pleasure. That realization fueled my resolve. I wasn't going to let her spin this to make herself look innocent. One afternoon, I decided to meet with a lawyer. I wanted to understand what her next moves could be, what rights she might have, how to protect myself from her manipulations. Sitting in that sterile office, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I'd taken control, and I wasn't going to let her worm her way back in. Not after what she'd done. But her tactics grew more aggressive. She started calling mutual friends, trying to paint herself as the victim. I could hear her crying on the phone, claiming I was unfair, that she'd been pressured, that she'd been misled. The sick irony was that she was the one who'd misled me every step of the way. I kept my distance, refusing to get dragged into her game. Then came the day I found something that changed everything. I was cleaning out some old boxes, trying to clear my head when I found her diary hidden underneath some old receipts. Curious, I flipped through it. And that's when I saw it, pages filled with her detailed manipulations, her attempts to guilt-trip me, her plans to keep Tom a secret from everyone. But what struck me most was a line she'd written. "He's so naive. I can keep him wrapped around my finger for as long as I want." That line hit me like a punch to the stomach. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about scheming, about lying and controlling. She saw me as nothing more than an easy target. That's when I realized how deep her manipulation ran, how much effort she'd put into keeping me blind, keeping me comfortable, so she could keep her lies intact. I knew then that I had to go further. I couldn't just walk away and let her manipulate others or spin her web of lies. No, I had to make sure she understood that I knew everything. She needed to see that her game was over, that I wasn't going to be her pawn anymore. That evening, I sat down and drafted a message, cold and deliberate. I told her I knew the truth, that her manipulations went far beyond the affair, that I'd uncovered her diary, her lies, her entire plan to keep me blinded until now. I said I was done playing her game, that I'd protect myself and anyone else she might try to hurt. I sent the message, then waited, feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and relief. Finally, I'd taken control. Whatever she threw at me next, I'd be ready. I'd exposed her, not just to her, but to everyone who mattered. I'd show her that her lies couldn't hold up anymore. And now I was moving forward, free from her web of deception, even if it meant facing the fallout. The next few days were a whirlwind. But I knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. I'd already seen how deep her manipulations went, and I wasn't about to let her pull the strings anymore. The game had changed, and I was finally in the driver's seat. The day after I sent that message, everything changed. She responded, but it wasn't with remorse or an apology. No, her reply was filled with anger, denial, and a new kind of aggression. She accused me of spying on her, of invading her privacy, and of ruining everything we'd built. Her words felt like a slap, cold and sharp, but I didn't flinch. I sat there reading her message, feeling the adrenaline spike through my veins. For the first time, I saw her not as the loving wife I believed in, but as someone entirely different, someone manipulative and cunning. Her words twisted everything I'd uncovered, trying to turn the tables. I could almost see her smirking, thinking she'd won some silent victory. I decided I had to confront her face to face again. I told her I'd meet her, that I wasn't interested in hiding anymore. I wanted her to see the full extent of what she'd done, and I wanted her to understand I wasn't backing down. When she arrived that evening, her face was tense, eyes darting around as if she was trying to gauge my mood. "Look," I started, voice low but firm. "I know everything now, your diary, the text, the way you've been manipulating me. I'm not going to let you spin this into some innocent mistake. You planned this, didn't you?" She looked away briefly, then met my gaze with a forced smile. "You're overreacting, you always do. I love you, I never meant to hurt you. It was just a moment of weakness, that's all." "Weakness," I scoffed. "You called it a mistake, but I see it differently. You saw me as naive, someone you could control. You lied and lied until I trusted you blindly. And now when I finally see the truth, you want to pretend it's nothing." Her face darkened. "You don't understand. I was scared. I was trapped. Tom was just someone I talked to, nothing more. You have to believe me." I shook my head. "No, Lisa, I don't believe you anymore. I've seen how you manipulate, how you plan, how you lie. You played me for months, and I'm not going to let you do it again. You're not innocent, and I want out." She reached out, voice trembling. "Please. Don't do this. I love you. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me like this." I stepped back. My stomach was tight, my palms sweating. The betrayal was like a hot poker stabbing into me. I felt the urge to lash out, to tell her exactly what I thought of her, but I kept my composure. "You're a manipulator, that's what you are. And I'm done being part of your game. I've already started planning my next move." The shock on her face was almost satisfying. She thought she had the upper hand, but I was done playing her game. I told her I'd take everything I needed, proof, documents, whatever it took, to make sure she couldn't spin her lies anymore. I needed her to understand that I knew the truth about her, and that I was done trusting her. As she left that night, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with annoying emptiness. I'd finally broken free from her web of manipulation, but I also knew I'd have to face the consequences. The fallout was coming, and I wasn't sure how deep her deception went beyond what I'd uncovered. I had to stay vigilant. She was the only one who'd been lying. Later that week, I put my plan into motion. I reached out to a private investigator, someone I trusted, to dig into her financials, her contacts, her whereabouts. I needed to know if she was planning to run or hide. I also started compiling everything I had, screenshots, messages, recordings, and backing it up in multiple secure places. I wasn't going to let her erase the truth. What struck me most during this process was how much I'd trusted her. I'd given her my love, my promises, my future, and in return she'd been weaving a web of lies and manipulation. It made me sick, but it also made me more determined. I wasn't going to let her get away with any of it, no matter what. That night I sat alone, staring at the evidence I'd collected. I took a deep breath and thought about what was coming next. The confrontation, the fallout, whatever it would bring. I had made up my mind. I was done hiding. It was time to face whatever was waiting for me, because I knew now that her manipulation was just the surface. Beneath it was something darker, something I had to expose fully, to finally move on. The days that followed were a blur of cold clarity and mounting tension. I had everything I needed now, proof, a plan, and a sense of resolve I'd never felt before. The more I uncovered, the more I realized her manipulation went far beyond the affair. She had spun a web so intricate I almost felt like I'd been blind all along. But I wasn't blind anymore, and I was done playing the fool. I set a date for the showdown. No more waiting around for her to make her move. I wanted her to see that I was serious. I called her one last time just to tell her I'd be at the house, and I expected her to be there too. Her response was a nervous, trembling voice. "I don't want to fight. Please, let's just talk." "No," I cut her off. "This isn't a conversation. It's a final stop. Be there or don't bother showing up." When she arrived that evening, her face was pale, eyes darting nervously. I had everything laid out on the table, screenshots, recordings, her diary pages, everything I'd compiled to show her I knew the full truth. She looked at it all, her hands trembling as she tried to keep her composure. "Look," I said, voice steady, "this isn't just about the affair. I know about your manipulations, your schemes. I know you've been planning this for a long time. How many people have you lied to? How many lives have you twisted to suit your needs?" She shook her head, eyes brimming with tears. You don't understand, I was scared. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Stop, I snapped. I don't want your excuses. I want the truth. Were you planning to run, to disappear with everything you've taken from me? Her lips quivered as she tried to speak, but no words came out. The guilt was written all over her face, and I could see the cracks in her facade starting to show. But I wasn't done. This was the moment she'd finally face what she'd built, her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. You thought you could keep me blind forever, I continued. But I see you now, and I see the person you really are. You used me, played me, and I'm not going to let you do it anymore. Her voice broke when she tried to respond. I loved you, I still do, I held up the evidence. You loved what I could give you or what you could manipulate out of me, not the real me. I was just a pawn in your game. She looked defeated, her shoulders slumping, her eyes dark with shame. I knew I had to make one final move. I reached into my bag and pulled out the divorce papers I'd prepared weeks ago, signed and ready. I laid them on the table, sliding them toward her. This is over, I said quietly. You can keep the house, the money, whatever you want, but I want nothing more to do with your manipulations. I'm leaving, and I want you to understand this is the end. Her trembling hands hovered over the papers before she finally grabbed them, tears streaming down her face. Please, she whispered, don't do this. I can change, I swear I'll get help. Just don't leave me like this. I looked at her, feeling a strange mixture of anger and pity. You had your chance, Lisa. I hope whatever help you seek actually works, because I'm done. I'm done being the puppet, the fool, the one you used to hide your lies. I rose from my seat, grabbing my keys. I handed her the divorce papers, knowing she'd signed them. Her fingers trembled as she did, and the last thing I saw was her trying to hold back tears, knowing she'd lost her grip on me, on her lies, on everything she'd built her manipulations on. As I walked out the door, the cool night air hit my face. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. It was finally over. The betrayal, the lies, the manipulation, they were gone. But the ache lingered. I'd been blindsided, used, and manipulated into believing I had a future with someone who was nothing like the person I thought she was. Looking back now, I realized the biggest lesson I learned was how dangerous manipulation can be. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought. I can see through lies and schemes. I can stand up for myself. And most importantly, I can walk away from someone who manipulates and deceives. So if you're ever in a situation like this, trust your gut. Don't ignore the red flags. And know that no matter how much you love someone, your self-respect is worth more than any betrayal. Sometimes the only way to truly heal is to walk away and start fresh. The days that followed felt surreal. I spent hours in my apartment, staring at the empty space where she used to be, silent except for the occasional hum of the city outside. For a while, I wrestled with guilt, anger, and relief all tangled together. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The lies, the manipulations, the silent betrayals. It was like peeling off layers of an ugly, corrosive onion, and each layer revealed something darker. In those quiet moments, I realized just how much her manipulation had affected me, how she'd subtly eroded my trust and made me doubt myself. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the slow realization that I'd been blind, that I'd let someone so cunning twist me into believing her version of reality. But I also understood something crucial. I was stronger than her manipulations. I'd pulled myself out of the darkness piece by painful piece. I finally took the time to reflect on what I'd learned. Trust isn't something that can be given lightly. It's fragile. It takes years to build, seconds to destroy. And once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fully repair if you want to keep your sanity. I also realized how important it is to listen to your instincts. I ignored the warning signs for too long, convincing myself I was overreacting, that she loved me. But in the end, I saw the truth. Her love was a game, and I was just the pawn. The most practical thing I did was cut ties completely. I handed over the keys, filed for divorce, and blocked her from my life. I knew she'd try to manipulate her way back in, but I was done. I'd learned that no matter how convincing someone is, their actions reveal their true character. She wanted to hold on, maybe because she realized she'd lost control. But I didn't want to be part of her web anymore. I needed to rebuild my life from scratch. One of the biggest lessons this experience taught me is that revenge, real revenge, isn't about retaliation or hurting someone back. It's about reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your sense of self. In a way, I already had that by finally seeing her for who she was and walking away. That was the ultimate victory. I no longer felt the sting of betrayal, I felt relief. I felt free. Looking back, I know I'm better for having gone through it. It's made me more cautious, more aware, and more resilient. I won't let anyone manipulate me like that again. And I hope that anyone reading this who's facing similar betrayal realizes the same thing. Trust your instincts. Don't ignore red flags, and remember that your self-respect is worth more than any lie someone tells to keep you quiet. So here's what I want to leave you with. Never let someone's manipulation convince you that you're weak or that you deserve to be lied to. Stand your ground. Cut out the toxic, fake people. And no matter how much it hurts, walk away when you have to. Because the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reclaiming your peace, your life, and your future without them.